No. No.
Andy, what are you doing?
No. I'm trying to find something new to read.
How many times do I have to tell you you can't judge a book by its cover? Or can you?
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the REDink Writers Podcast. My name is Sandy Butchers, and I'm the author and illustrator of the Singalarian Grimoire Anthology on Kickstarter.
And I'm Lydia Stevens, author of the Hellfire series in the Ginger Davenport Escapades. We're happy to have you back today as we're going to be taking a look at some book covers, and we're going to look at some that are really good covers and some that are not so great. So stay tuned, and we're going to give you some tips and tricks on what makes a really good book cover.
REDink is always happy to share news from Write Hive, so get ready for Write Hive Light, the free virtual writing retreat held in October. Now, during this 2-day event, you get the perfect opportunity to connect to other writers and to hone your craft. It's also perfect for writers who just need a set time to sit down and focus on their writing and revisions. Now, applications for the editorial feedback are already closed, but you can still get a spot during the live events on their Discord channel. So if you want to make use of this really cool initiative from Write Hive, be sure to click that link below in the description. In today's episode, we are going to judge books by their covers, and although this expression is used to prevent people from misjudging others, in the publishing industry, covers often tell a lot about the book they represent. Now, there are so many different types of covers. There are simple covers or really extravagant covers. There are artwork covers or even automatically generated covers. There are so many options, but how do you decide which cover fits your book? In today's episode, Lydia and I will shed some new light on the subject, and we'll give you tips and tricks to decide how to get that cover just right for your book. But before we dive into the meat of today's video, we'd like you to take a moment and hit that like and subscribe button below. About 46% of all you people watching us aren't currently subscribed, and we realize these are much better numbers than last week, so thank you for that. But if you want to support us and make sure we keep the content coming, subscribe now. Don't forget to hit that bell button. So, Lydia, considering that you really like strolling through a bookstore to get yourself something new to read, how important is a cover for you?
I mean, it's essential to have a good cover on your book because that's the first thing that a reader is going to see. That is the first thing that a potential buyer is going to see is your cover. So it is absolutely imperative that you have a cover that not only matches your jacket flap copy, you know, the little blurb that you read of what the book is about, but that is eye-catching and, you know, it fits with the tone of the book. So I would say for the initial buy, it is the most important thing. If you buy the book because the back book blurb and, you know, and the jacket, the cover, they match and they're, you know, it makes you buy the book. And then as you're reading the book and you realize, oh, the cover doesn't really fit, well, then it becomes a little, you can kind of, all right, form this own image in your mind of what the book, you know, what that initial image might represent. But as far as getting someone to stop and pick up your book, the cover is the very first thing that's going to make that happen. So like when I'm browsing in a bookstore, I have some pretty particular tastes as far as reading. I mean, I have my authors who, you know, I think there's like 20 of them that I just automatically buy the book when I know a new one is coming out. I haven't yet seen a cover that I don't like from them, but they're all also traditionally published. So, I mean, they have, they have some pretty phenomenal, and a few of them, I actually follow their artists online, and I get little snippets of, the cover teasers. But if I'm in a bookstore, I love any books about travel. History usually makes me stop and go, depending on which countries I'm interested in at the time, and the travel and the history and the culture of those countries. Haunted houses, I am a total sucker for haunted houses. So it's, I see an old abandoned mansion or house or something like that on a cover, and I'm going to stop.
Yep.
And I'm going to start to read the jacket copy. And then if it doesn't match with the haunted house kind of creepy house vibe, then I'm like, where, like last week I was looking at one and I absolutely loved the cover. I was like, oh, it's a haunted house, and I'm in the mood for, witchy autumn Halloween type stuff. And I started reading, and the book was all about politics. And I'm like,
really?
Yeah, it was. I was like, I'm not really interested in reading about politics. I get enough of it in social media and the news and all of that. So it was an automatic. The cover did not match what the story was about at all.
Is that a recent development though? Because I've seen a lot of stuff, passing the newsfeed on, for example, Twitter or even Instagram, where people complain about how covers are used to sort of mislead people into thinking a book is about one thing. A very quick example, which is also a very relevant example, is that people are using artwork that shows us, for example, black characters, while there are hardly any black characters in the book. So they're using it, to sort of make us think, oh, this is really a thing, but it isn't. So what do we do with that?
I mean, yeah, I think there are some people out there who really sort of manipulate the cover to try to be eye-catching based on current trending things in news and social media and stuff like that. Social movements, that's like you just pointed out, that's a really big thing. And it's really crappy when they do that. Because, if you're looking specifically for books about, social movement and civil unrest and things like that, and you pick this book up and thinking, you're looking at the cover and it's really got, some of those features on the cover, and then you start and you realize that that's not actually what the book is about, you're going to put it down. So I know, and you're the graphic artist here, so you can speak a little bit more on this. Book covers are sort of evolving, I think, in that we're seeing a lot more symbolism as opposed to just straight up, like a picture of a haunted house. We did it with my books, and we'll get into that. We can get into that a little bit later, but they're becoming more abstract. I think I've seen a lot of that lately. It's sort of a trending thing. But
that's going two ways. Like, there is one group of writers who is really teaming up with conceptual artists, and exactly they are very abstract in what they come up with. But at the same time, especially in the fantasy and sci-fi genre, there is a lot of really heavy-duty artwork going on, which I personally love. But there seems to be like a split up between where you can go. You either go fully abstract or you go full artwork at this point. And I personally think that this movement goes hand in hand with how self-publishing is growing right now. Because, well, there is a discussion about the quality of self-published work, because who is going to, check if it is the right quality, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we've had this conversation in one of our earlier episodes. And the thing is that you can nowadays, because covers are so important, you can draw someone in with a really, really, a bang up cover, while the story might not be so good. So this creates a sort of counter movement, because when you see a cover that looks so good, somewhere in the back of your head, you're going to have that voice saying, there must be something wrong with this book because they have so much on this cover. There's duality in there.
Right. I mean, I think, you're going to get that in both traditionally published, you could have an amazing graphic designer and the book isn't all that great. I've seen that. And likewise, and we can't just bash on self-published authors,
No,
especially
absolutely not.
you know. Another thing that I have seen is pre-mades, what are called pre-made covers, and they're these artists and they're putting together these covers, and then writers are buying the covers based on what they see and then writing the story to the cover. So that's a really interesting sort of twist on that, and
almost like a writing prompt or something.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool it's a cool trend, and then it's like at least their book is gonna match the cover, so that's a really neat thing. And then we've seen some pre-made covers and some that haven't been so great. And again, case in point, we'll look at mine later, but you also have what do you call them, the not cut and paste, the click art. No.
Oh, when I have the stock images all just piled up together. Oh yes, I love stock images.
So there's
Don't get me started.
amazing covers with stock images, and then there are others where it's very noticeable that this was sort of rushed through, and it could be better, and I don't know anything about blending or anything like that, but so for someone who doesn't know about that, it's not quite as noticeable. So there, like I said, I'm browsing through a store and I'm looking at books and stuff like that, and I'm picking up a book based on visually what appeals to me. So like I like really bright colors or something very, very dark. So like an emerald green or a royal blue, that will make me stop and look at the cover. Those are a couple of my favorite colors. And so I'm like, oh, especially if I'm in my preferred sections, bargain books and the fantasy section. And yes, I will cop to, the romance section, but that one, you've only got so many bare chests on the covers before I just sort of start passing them all off. Sorry, I know in the romance genre, that is what sells for me personally. I just, I keep going, and I might find one, I don't know, a long time ago, reading a Julie Garwood, and she had like jewels or something on the cover, and that made me stop and pick up the book. And it was a really good romance story. But yeah, I've read my fair share of, bodice ripper, chest on the cover, all that
I saw a book cover once, and it was, I will never forget it. I mean, it's in my eyes still. There was this guy, and he was of course bare-chested, and his chest was way too big for my taste. But anyway, and there was this exploding mountain behind him, and there was this baby laying, cradled in front of him, and I was like, I don't even want to guess what this book is about. But
yeah, I'm gonna give them a little bit of shout out. I do like their podcast, Smart Bitches Trashy Books, and they take covers like this, and it's hysterical. So if you get a chance to listen to them rip on some romance cover, it's so funny. But being also a romance author, I do understand that those covers are the ones that sell. They really are what make up the market and what gets somebody to say, "Ooh, that's a nice chest, nice chest. So I'm gonna pick up." So we can't really bash on them too hard, but
no, of course.
Guilty as charged. But likewise, something very dark. Like if you give me a skull, like I said, the haunted house. If I've got a black cover with a jeweled dagger or something, I'm going ooh, and I'm gonna So that's a little bit of mystery. If you've got some mystery on your cover, and your cover should fit your genre. So a cozy mystery, I don't want to see, a skull with a snake coming out the eye socket. That's not a cozy mystery genre cover. They're more the, I don't remember who wrote it, but like Cupcake Murders or Bake Murders and stuff like that. And they're the cartoon, almost cartoon-like colors. And they're pastels. So those fit with a cozy mystery. So yeah, you want your cover to fit your genre as well. That's very important. And I'm gonna go ahead and you interject here.
No, yeah, I'm just thinking. I mean, we have discussed this now from the point of view where you buy books, but you are obviously also a writer. You have published a couple of books. You have worked with publishing houses. You have worked with artists that you found online. you have worked with a professional artist. Um, what do you prefer and why?
Um, I mean, you've done a lot of cover work over the years, and you're currently designing the Hellfire series. So you as a professional, I do enjoy working with you. I have a little more say in working with you in what I want in a cover. This coming from my experience at a literary agency, most traditionally published authors do not have a say in their cover in a traditional house. I think they might be able to do cover briefs, creative briefs of what they have in mind. And the cover, designer will take that into consideration when designing the cover, but there is very little say and influence in a publishing house of what goes on your cover. So just, if you're self-published and you're working with a graphic designer, you get all of the say.
All freedom, yeah.
You are paying for this cover to be able to put on your book. If you're going with a traditional publisher, just keep in mind that you probably don't have a lot of hold over what goes on.
That's going to be a thing if I ever get traditionally published. I mean, I am a graphic designer. I'm gonna look at those covers and go, no, and this needs to change, and that needs to go there, and then they're like, oh, where did we get started with this?
Right. Well, being a graphic designer, can you kind of, tell us a little bit about how the process works?
Yeah, sure. So for me, the most important part is where I, get into a conversation with the writer. I want to know the general idea of the story. I don't need to read the book. Some artists do. They just want to have a copy, and they want to read it to get into it. For me, the essence is enough. I mean, you as a writer know best of all people what your book is about, so tell me. And then from there, I usually set up a couple of color schemes, color schematics, so that with the colors you define the atmosphere. So that's the first important process. From there, I usually make up some sketch mock-ups, like this goes there. This is what I'm thinking about picture-wise, because I am one of those art cover designers. So if you hire me to create a cover, you hire me to actually make like a full art piece for the book.
Yeah, I remember doing the Hellfire series and just, having these ideas, and I see these things in my head and I can describe them in words to you, but it would be like you would take that as a writer yourself and pull something from that I just, absolutely astounding. I didn't even think I needed that element. I remember with South of Heaven, West of Hell's Bells, and I'm talking, and I'm like, she's really making a gamble on life, and there's fire, and there's demons, and there's, and this and that, and you come up with, the poker table, and and I was just, and I've got fire, and I've got demons, and stuff like that on a deck of cards. And it just, that would have never occurred to me to pull that, but as as an artist, as a graphic designer, just the fact that you can take an idea and create this almost entirely new concept to be able to bring out all the little nuances of that idea. I would have never even gone with gambling. And
the thing is, it's not even about actual graphic skills here. I mean, the largest part of getting this done is by listening. I just listen to what you say. You can talk to me for about an hour, and I'm going to take everything in. And this is also the way my brain functions, because if you tell me a story, I'm watching a movie inside of my head. I see everything in pictures. I hear in images. It sounds weird, but that's just how it is. So the more you tell me, the more these images start, to come. So for me, the connection between they're gambling with lies and there's fire, and for me, this is a 1 and 1 equals 2. And then again, and there's the risk of the artist, because I could also have made something, and you looked at it and go, "This is nope." That's the biggest nope. And that's a risk you have to take as an artist. So yeah, it means you're gonna spend a lot of time to get that concept worked out and to make sure it turns into a cover. But at the same time, you take that risk of spending that time on something that is not going to work, and you're going to have to start all over again. And
Right.
And depending on whether you are working with someone, who knows the job, or someone who's just doing something and calling themselves a graphic designer, because these people are out there.
Mhm.
These people are a proper
Yeah.
cover artist is going to say, look, okay, so it's like writing. You get a couple of rounds of revision also on the cover work. I think that's very important. I mean, how many hours have we spent just tweaking that one
A
cigarette burn,
lot.
going from one corner to the next, and
Yeah, that brings up a good point in the quality, and the cover, is it, being worth it, and the hours spent, because um a lot of times on social media I see, I need cover, and one of the things with self-published authors, and again, this is not bashing on self-published authors, I am one, they need a cheap cover, because they're expensive. And so you want to be sure that you're being respectful and you're paying your cover designer, because it is a skill, and it's not a skill that everybody possesses. But at the same time, you've got a self-published author who might not have the biggest budget to be able to so then you're looking at writers who are going to those pre-made covers, or they're going to the stock image covers, and and that's what they're doing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you have to look at cost versus quality, and is it worth it? Like I saw on social media the other day, somebody was asking a question in a group, and they said that this graphic designer was really well known. There was a wait list, and one of his covers was $2,000 just for one cover.
it happens.
And yeah, and so the community came in and they had a lot of great points of, are your other books selling out enough to cover the cost? Do you think you can sell this book enough to cover the cost of the? So
is it an investment that's going to earn itself back? Like I can buy, or I can write a really crappy book and wrap it up in a really nice cover, but if it's not going to sell, if by the end of the day, for me, it's not worth the money, then I'm not going to spend $2,000. On the other hand, though, if I know that my writing is not fantastic, or even if I write a perfect book, and I self-publish it, there is a risk that it's not going to sell. But if I find it's worth it, what's keeping me from spending the $2,000?
Right. I mean, you then get into a whole host of things in terms of your budget and the cover and the costs for editing and marketing. Just because you have an amazing cover does not mean that book is going to sell.
No, exactly.
You have to market. Yeah. So this is all, when you're talking about if you have an amazing cover, does that help? Absolutely. 100% absolutely. But yeah, so that's kind of the first step towards making sure that your book is something that you're going to earn back that.
It's the first investment in your book. Yeah, that's right.
So it's when considering publishing your book and stuff like that, you really need to take all of this into all of these factors into consideration. So.
Yeah, I agree.
REDink has opened the doors of their virtual studio for fellow writers and members of the writing community. Do you want your book promoted on our show? This is now possible. On our website, REDinkWriters.com, we have a continuous raffle going on where you can enter to win a free promotion of your book. So this week, we'd like to show you the Singularian Grimoire Anthology, a project from our very own host, Sandy Butchers.
Yes, I would love to make use of the opportunity to show you my work here, because I've been working a lot with these anthologies. Not only are they a monthly thing at this point on Patreon, but right now it's also going live on Kickstarter, and I still need a couple of backers to actually make this project kick off and become an actual book. Imagine the love child between a comic book and a graphic novel. The Singularian Grimoire Anthology is exactly that. With over 250 pages and more than 70 stories and 60 illustrations, this is a must-have for every science fiction and fantasy fan. Sovereign knows he is far from human. His mind was transferred into a machine a long time ago. The Singularian, they called him. What he doesn't know is what happened when 2/3 of the human population was wiped out and the remaining people crusaded to destroy all technology. Now Sovereign finds himself lost in a second dark age where tech-hoarding bounty hunters are after his head to sell his parts. Now at the same time, one of the remaining tech companies from before the Cataclysm succeeds in creating human-animal hybrids. Bound by an oath to protect mankind from extinction, Gale Griswold firmly believes that by splicing humans, he is setting up the survival of the species. But through centuries of research and cruel experiments, the splices rise against the abuse of their people. This leather-bound hardcover will be a complete collection of all the stories and illustrations as released in 2021. It will be a whopping 250 plus page thick beast of a book, and each copy of this will be signed and accompanied by a personalized message to you just to make your friends jealous. Don't wait, because this Kickstarter is only open until September 27th.
Hey everyone, welcome to this segment of the show called the Intern Insights. This is based on my experience working at a literary agency and a publishing house as an intern. And today I want to talk to you, since the theme is book covers, about author kits. This was something that I came across in my internship work, and it was something that I didn't really know about until this. I didn't realize that authors did this or had to do this. An author kit is just basically, it's a marketing kit, and it really utilizes the book cover to sort of go out there and promote the book. And so with an author kit, you've got several things. You've got sort of the actual cover, just maybe like the front screenshot of the cover. That you can post all over your social media and stuff like that. And that's a great thing to have, because then what you can do with that, and one thing that I have started learning to do, and I've been asking Sandy to help me with this, you can do teasers from your cover. So little sections, you can take from the cover, and they almost act like a teaser, like you would a line or two from the book. So that you can promote it on social media and really get your readers' attention and say, hey, this is a little bit of something that I've got coming for you, and this is what it looks like. So it really draws them in, and they want to know more. They want the rest of the cover. They want to see what the whole picture is, so that when you throw those pre-orders up and stuff like that, they can grab hold of that book. So that's something that would be in like an author kit. And this was, in my work, we were given some covers and we were told, go into, the graph, show me this cover in several different ways. So you also, in an author kit, you want like that tagline on the front of the book. So, take Hellfire series. I think on Highway to Hell, there's something like she rides for her soul or something like that. It's very simple. It's one line, one sentence, which sort of hooks the reader. So you can play around with that on the cover of a book and in your teasers and stuff like that. So that is a part of your author kit, is you need to come up with that tagline. A lot of authors have their sort of own tagline for their brand. So mine is Feel Your Fire, Let It Feed Your Soul. And I have that on my website, on my social media and stuff like that. It's not specifically on my books per se, but it is associated with, I write a lot about fire and inner conflict and souls and stuff like that. So that is another part of your author kit. And notice that these things are really, they're not necessarily a physical copy of something, but you want to have this material available to use so that when you're promoting your book, you've got a lot of different options to use. Another thing that I've seen in an author kit, and one thing that I have started to partake in because it gets a lot of interaction, is the book trailers. So, I had Sandy make my book trailers, and they're absolutely phenomenal. I love them. They're like 30 seconds, and they're just, flashes of image, some music, little interactive stuff. And then at the end of the book trailer, is that picture of your book cover. And like a buy link or something like that, and you want to include that when you do your social media post so that people can go pre-order that book. But another thing that I have learned since working with Sandy is the book banners, and that if you're a series writer and you want that banner to have sort of your books lined up, and maybe you can see it here where with the Why Me and the Singularity and Grimoire anthologies in the background, and they're all kind of lined up together. Well, a book banner is going to be that social media picture that has the covers of all of the books. So it's really important to have those because it shows everybody that you have multiple books out, and then they can go look for you on a website, or if you want them to steer them to your other social media to follow or something like that. It's really important to have that graphic image or banner post. That's a part of your author kit. Another aspect of the author kit is you want to have your bio. So the writing accomplishments that you've done, awards, books that you've written in the bio. You need to have that little blurb in a document or something like that, so that when you're asked for it, you can provide it. And that is not only is that for social media, but if you do interviews, like I have a couple of interviews coming up this week, I have all of that in my author kit. And when they ask me for my bio, my schooling and my work history and things like that, anything that pertains to writing should be summarized in that bio. So that's important to have in your author kit as well. You want, for promotion purposes, something that is really popular lately for your author kit is to have that graphic image with a hard copy of the book with the cover, and then the little cell phone book cover, and then maybe an e-reader with the book cover, and like the three are sort of staggered and stacked together so that you can see that the book is available in multiple formats, because people are starting to expand on how they read a book. I have not yet seen any of those graphic images which portray maybe an audio book, because it's a little, I think I've seen one or two where there's a little image of headphones going into, a device or something like that. But that's something that you want to keep in mind for your author kit. And again, this all has to do with marketing, and it's sort of all centered around your book cover and your book blurb and your bio, and your previously published books and stuff like that. So this is, in terms of intern insights, this is something that you want to be aware of. This could be something that you hire somebody to help you put together. Me, I am not a graphic designer. I'm not an artist. I draw stick figures, and usually you don't know that they're stick figures. So I need help with this in terms of the graphics. The written parts, I can come up with that on my own. The tagline on the book cover. You also want to consider maybe reviews. If you have a really positive review of your book, whether it's you had an ARC reader, or this book has been previously published and you've got a great review, maybe including that with your kit as well, so that you can use that. I know that I had a great review that I put on the cover of Highway to Hell in the graphic images. So that's really important thing to include in your author kit. So I think that's really sort of the basics of an author kit, and then you can utilize that any way you need to market your book. Sandy, do you have anything to add that you would say you would add to that kit, or
Not really, actually. I think this is a really complete list of what you need to sort of get the branding and the promotion thing going.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I hadn't heard of the author kit either.
Yeah.
So for me, everything you just gave us, and I knew it was there, and I knew you kind of need it. But I didn't know that's what it's called. So thanks for sharing this.
You're welcome. Until I did the intern work, I had no idea that anybody would have something like this. And
Yeah.
I think with traditional publishing, they try to provide you with a little bit of that, but really is the author's responsibility to have those tools necessary to promote the book, because it's their social media and it's their following, and you really need to have all of that, not just bits and pieces. And I mean, as we saw this morning getting ready to record our episode, I have those things. They're not all right there where they should be. I'm not the most organized person today, so yeah, it's important, keep that little folder with all of that material in it, so that you can pick and choose what you need to, and what's appropriate. Like sometimes Facebook, you might have this really long explanation of why you did this with this book and that convention and stuff like that. That's not going to fit on Twitter. Twitter wants a little 140 character explanation of why we're seeing this book trailer. So yeah, it's very important to have everything so that you can really design your marketing to the material that you have, so that you can get those book sales. So yeah, hopefully this helps and you can all start to put together your kits. I have this little image in my head of everybody, going around with like a bag or something, and I need that. The little virtual, person collecting all the stuff they need. So good luck making your author kits, and definitely really recommend having them. So have a good one.
This week's Twitter poll asked what you people were most eager to hear about. We gave you 3 options. The first one was do's and don'ts for cover designs. The second one was basic design principles. And the third one was how to use text on a cover. Now, the answer was pretty clear because most people voted for do's and don'ts for a cover design. And what better way to do that than by showing you a couple of covers and going through the observations that I make while being a cover artist, but also as Lydia, who loves to go through the bookstore and pick up those books based on their covers. So here's just a very short disclaimer. These covers are not sponsored in any way, and nor does our analysis affect the quality of the book itself. So we are just saying what we see. And to make an opinion on this book, we leave that up to you. All right, Lydia, we have the first cover, and we actually got this one from someone who suggested this one through the website. Now, for me, the first thing I see is the color. It's the contrast between the black and the blue, which I think works really well. And you are very eager to say something. Go say it.
I love this cover. I would pick this book up. So it screams political thriller mystery. Just, the Judge Censor is, very prominent right there in front of you. But then, you start looking at all the little nuances of the cover, and you see the Censor's Secret Society. I am a sucker for a secret society. So if you're a listener and you're a member of a secret society, send me an invitation, because I want one. I want like the cloak and dagger. Yeah, that's totally me. And then, you've got the scales of justice in the background. You've got the judge's gavel. And then in the bottom, the thriller, the mystery part, you've got sort of, the dark street in the car and stuff like that. So it definitely suggests that you're going to end up with, we've got a mystery on our hands. I feel like Scooby-Doo right now. But no, I just love, this would make me stop in a store and pick this book up and read the jacket copy. And I haven't read the jacket copy. But yeah, I absolutely love this cover.
Yeah, I can see why. And also from a technical point of view, the edge work is really well done. Like, I don't see any cut and paste edges there. I don't get the whole stock images just slapped together. This is really worked out. This is done by a professional. And also something that I really like to point out in terms of a do and don't on a cover, they don't use too many different types of fonts. So it is not a mess of, oh, look, we have this fancy font here and we're gonna smack it something else right there. There is a really good balance between what the letters are doing on the screen, and I'm all here for it. Also, the only thing that I would actually, it's not necessarily a sort of down point or downside to this one, but it might be a bit too literal. Like, yes, the scales are very symbolic, but I do feel that this cover might be giving away a little bit too much of the actual story. So the balance it's still good. Yeah.
There is a lot going on in it.
Yeah.
Yes. For me, I like busy covers. I do, and you've had this conundrum with me when designing my covers, and I'm like, I want fire here and I want skulls there, and you're like, no.
I think we had the biggest discussion with the text, actually, because you wanted a lot of text on the front cover, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
So yes, it's a matter of preference to some degree, but also one of the things I really like about the text on this cover is it is very block text for most of it, so it's very clean and you can read it very well. The white really contrasts with the black and the blue. But then you have the J and the S in judge and censor, and you've got the swirling curly cues on the J and the S. And so that brings in just enough character into those letters that it adds to the intrigue of the title. So I really, really enjoy that. Is it busy in the background? Yes. I think you've got sort of a duality of, the judge being at the top and then censor. You've got sort of this sensory experience with the dark street, and it really brings out this intrigue and this mystery and this thriller. So you've got duality in the cover, but they were working together. Yes, it's for some people this might be too busy. For me, I would pick this book. I'm gonna go and
so give it a grade. Like if you give it points 1 to 10.
9.
Okay.
I would pick this. I'm actually probably gonna go look for this book.
I'm the tough teacher here. I'm gonna say 7.5. And still, and for me, and that's really good. That's really good for my standards. So I think that would be the same about your 9. So, yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. So we have some tips and tricks coming forth from this one. Now, if we scroll down a little bit to the next one, look at this beauty. First thoughts.
It doesn't match the title. It feels very cramped. So the cover itself is screaming science fiction, because you've got the woman with the shears, and you've got the alien fish guy behind her. So it's
I think in the original cover it's supposed to be a wolf kind of thing. I checked this one out on
wolf?
I don't know. There's like
oh.
Yeah, I checked this one out through other websites, and this one is actually kind of famous by now for being a bad cover. And people are still arguing about, is it a wolf, is it a bear, is it a tree? People don't really know. And I'm saying this again, like, sorry, say that again?
I will. This is the hill I'm going to die on. It's a fish guy.
Okay, yeah. So is it a wolf, is it a bear, is it a fish guy? Like, it can go any kind of direction. I think it's funny though that you're calling this a sci-fi cover, because for me, I thought it was going to be fantasy, because for some reason the red-haired girl with the blue eyes, and then there's also the color schematics kind of suggest fantasy. But
it does. Fantasy and sci-fi can kind of cross some boundaries a little bit. I think why it screams sci-fi to me is because when I saw the image in the background, I immediately thought fish guy.
Could be an alien.
Yeah. Alien fish guy. So I have to be a little bit nice. I think she's pretty. I like her red hair, and I love her freckles, and I love the fact that there's something that different on a cover, because you don't see a lot of redheaded freckled people on a cover. So I'm always one of those. For every critique, I do look for something something positive to say, because I don't like putting people down.
No. And this is not about putting it down. This is about. No, I get it. I mean, there are good things to say about it.
I think she's very pretty, but it's too much. And then you get into the text. You can very clearly see the author's name, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
The title of the book gets lost though. It took me a couple of tries. It's not necessarily the font. I don't know in terms of a graphic design perspective how you would bring this forward a little bit, but Moira's gets lost in the image, and I don't know if that's just something that you maybe would need to outline or shadow or something like that.
A simple drop shadow would even fix that problem. Yeah.
You know, it's one of those you have to squint, like, and I think the I and the R in Moira is where I'm getting really lost, because it took me a minute to realize it was Moira, not Mona. So
yeah.
And
that's the font. Yeah, that's not even the placement. That's just the font itself.
Yeah, I like the font, but it doesn't work because everything else is so busy. It, you know, I like the daggered T's, and I happen to be drawn to this kind of font, but it takes me a minute to really. And the title doesn't match what's going on in the images.
I even have no idea. By this cover, I couldn't have a clue what this book is about a girl with some scissors and a big giant monster behind her. But again, talking about the technicalities, the way this has been cut and pasted into the document, there is no edge work, nothing. Again, I agree with you with the name of the author being on top, being very readable, which is really well done actually. Color schematically, I also think it works. Like the combination of colors are actually okay. It's just that the way this has been finalized, for me, that's a no.
Yeah, I like the fact that the monster is very dark and she's very vibrant. I mean, that definitely speaks to the dichotomy of good and evil. So that does, you know, work in that regard, but the rest of it doesn't fit. The title doesn't fit.
No, exactly.
We don't know, is the monster following Moira in her footsteps, or is Moira looking over her shoulder all the time because the monster's in her footsteps and she's about to get eaten by
She's in the monster's footsteps.
Fish, guy, wolf, man, snarling, whatever. And then as far as the author's name, yes, it's very clear, you can read it, but it's almost too spread out for me.
There was no white space
like
around it.
You know, it's right there on the edge, but also it's stretched, so it kind of looks skewed. And that might just be I have really crappy eyesight.
No,
but
I get that.
It was, you know, it was almost like he's making his name the banner across the top of the book, which,
you would need more white space around it. And that's also one of the do's for, you know, cover design. Make sure there is enough space around any text to make sure that it doesn't fall off your page, or it doesn't give it the idea that something has been crammed into a cover. Use the space that you have.
Yeah, I've had that issue with covers before, where you get it and it looks good, and you know, and then of course you're uploading the cover to Amazon Publishing, and you know they give you like a centimeter where they're like, this is so, it throws everything. Oh, it's awful. And I've come to you crying and pulling my hair out, like, I don't understand, it won't fit on the thing in the red line, and yeah, it's. So I could see this having some issues depending on what platform he's uploading it to, for, you know, getting it to specs for publishing and stuff like that. So it's there are elements of it that are done well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the concept of the thing, it's a very high concept cover, which is actually great.
But they're not put together cohesively.
Exactly.
And I also have to wonder what she's going to do with those scissors, because like they're not threatening the monster behind her at all. It looks like she's going to try to cut off her nose, and I feel bad.
And she's looking very okay. All right, okay.
Well, it's like I said, parts of it are okay, but it doesn't work together.
Okay, give it points 1 to 10.
I would give this one a 3.
Yeah. I'm gonna agree with that. I'm not gonna go lower than a 3. All right. Okay, so the third cover is going to be a surprise cover for you, and I am going to paste it right now. Okay. Can you see it?
Look at that! No. It's my cover! Oh,
okay, so for the third one, we are looking at South of Heaven, West of Hell's Bells. And I did this because it's this month that it's releasing, or is it next month?
September 22nd, so less than a month, yeah.
Yes, so you must be super excited about that.
Yeah. very excited. I'm super excited. So this is the one we were talking a little bit about earlier, as far as the gambling. And Catriona Clark, who is my main character, she's really gambling with the lives of her Hellcats. So as you can see with this cover, you've got the gambling table, the poker table, and you've got the poker card, and then you've also got sort of this symbolism of you've got a hellhound on top and a hellcat on bottom, or vice versa, I'm sorry. And so this one we really bring in the rival gang, the hellhounds, into South of Heaven, West of Hell's Bells, and that is in the book blurb. So for those of you, obviously you can't see that right now, but so you've got that symbolism there, and you've got the playing card, the gambling card. And I think what I love about this is the heart and the spade. So I don't know what it is about poker. Those have always been my two favorite suits, but you've really got that love she has for her Hellcats. That to me anyway is what that symbolizes on the gambling, on the playing card. And then you've got the spade. So like she's digging her own grave in some of the choices that she's making. So when it comes to working with the hellhounds, that's really what that kind of represents for me. And then of course you've got the cigarette. She's a demon. I mean, she's a sinner, and smoking's bad. Quit. Yeah. If you're a smoker.
That was one of my comments on this cover. It might actually not be appropriate for every audience, considering there's a cigarette in there, so there might be some backlash for kids who pick this up at a library. But
I love the fact that I tell you I need fire, and so you literally put a cigarette burn in my gambling table, and that just brings in such a symbolism and a metaphor for she's just going to set the whole table on fire. She's gambling with the lives of people, and she's trying to atone for her own sins so she can go to heaven, but she's just going to burn it to the ground because of the choices that she makes. So I love this cover. It's one of my favorites.
For me, it would be a little bit weird to judge this cover, and I'm not going to give it any numbers because obviously I made it. But in terms of, again, the do's and don'ts on a cover work, if you look carefully, you see that there's only one font being used here. Everything is at the same font, so it creates a sort of unity. And at the same time, this is one of those covers where it's a full art piece. If you look at the whole thing is a piece of art. But it's so high in concept, like there is not so much to see. It's not like we get one of those really old-fashioned, like the classic sci-fi art prints, because they would just be posters smacked on a book cover, which I love that. But this is like the ultimate balance between these two things. It's super high in concept, at the same time it's very artistic.
Yes. And I love the color. There's not a lot of color going on, but the color that is there is really deep and rich, which really speaks to me. I love, like I said, royal blues and emeralds and ruby reds, that just speaks to me the most. So the fact that the royal blue is in here, and then you've got sort of the monotone, the neutral colors, really works. And I mean, as far as what's actually on the cover, there's a playing card and there's a cigarette. So there's not a lot of stuff, like tangible items. But when you start looking at the nuances of what is on there, like you've got the cigarette smoke, you've got the ashes and the cinders from that cigarette, and on the playing card itself, in addition to the pictures of the Hellcat and the Hellhound skulls, and the suit, the heart and the spade. Like if you look at the border of the card, I love Celtic knotwork. So the fact that the card is designed in this pattern also speaks to me, because you learn in this book that Catriona is of Irish descent. So that
I did not even know that while I was making this.
So when you did it, and I saw it, I was just, oh, that's amazing. So yeah, there's not a lot on the cover, but what's there has, you can start to, when you really start looking at it, you can start picking out the details of what's there. And looking at the Hellcat and the Hellhound, you've got that sword going through both skulls. I think in Highway to Hell there was the Hellcat with one dagger, and that really speaks to bringing the hounds and the cats together, and that does start to happen in South of Heaven, West of Hell's. I can't give everything away, but
okay.
yeah. So
and in terms again of the do's and don'ts, so high concept images they work if done well. It definitely works because you can tell like half the story based on this single image, while there's not even that much to see. Another do is, compared to the last or the previous cover we looked at, there is a lot of white space around here. So if you look at where the text has been placed, there is a proper border of nothing around it. So it doesn't give you the feeling that the text has been crammed onto the page and it just had to fit there. It's a pretty long title, South of Heaven,
Right.
West of Hell's Bells. Break it up, make it one chunk as we've done here, but separate them in two different lines. So give them space to breathe. Again, the fonts, so don't use too many fonts. I would say 2 is the maximum. 3 if done well, but you really need to know what you're doing if you're going to work with 3 different fonts. Edge work.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, let me ask you, if you were to do 3 fonts, would you do title in one font with the subtitle, like you have Hellfire Series Book 2, and then maybe author in a font, and then I know some people do put their taglines on the front of their book, so would that be like the third? Would that be how you would, conceptually, how would you do that to make it
really depends. It really depends. Like it is possible to have the author's name in a different font and then the title in a different font and a tagline, but still between the author's name and the tagline, I would pick 2 fonts that look very much alike. So they can be different, but they need to be pretty similar so that it doesn't become obvious, because otherwise it just becomes a sort of mumbo jumbo, put stuff together, and it's going to confuse you. And these are the same thing I did with the first book, the Highway to Hell. This almost becomes a branding. Like if you show people these covers, they are going to recognize the fonts, they are going to recognize the style this has been made in, and that is just what I went for when I designed these covers. So that is also something to consider, again, in terms of do's and don'ts. If you really feel like the book that you're publishing is going to be your benchmark, it's going to be the one that you are going to be in a way famous with, make sure that it's something you can brand. Make sure it has a sort of unity in there, and that we can start to recognize your work by looking at any piece of what you have, because it's all connected through a certain style. So I hope that kind of helped, and we've looked at a couple of covers, and we've seen really good ones. We've seen some that we definitely have an opinion about, but I think we've covered most of the.
Yeah, what last things that I would add to this is I love how gritty it is, because we're really talking about demons and redemption and the the difference between heaven and hell. And so I love that there's that darkness to it, there's that grittiness, and even on the card itself, the card is not perfect. There's stains and there's the wrinkle and stuff like that. But at the same time, you do have those little elements of that could symbolize hope in regards to the heart and the Celtic heritage, the Celtic knotwork and stuff like that. So I, talking about author branding and things like that, I can't show them because once the contract was done with the press, this is a re-release as well as Highway to Hell. I was contracted with a publisher. I can no longer use those covers. They're not my property anymore. So they are still out on the internet. When you search these titles, you will see them. But we had to go in an entirely different direction to be able to rebrand and to get this. And so with the other covers, they were more stock images, and that's okay. They worked for the sort of concept of the covers that I was going with, which was motorcycles. Both covers featured a motorcycle, and this one is really more symbolic, I think. And that's, in writing the stories, I have a lot of that in there. There are a lot of sort of topics that aren't physical issues or conflict. There's a lot of internal conflict of self. So, the being able to bring in this sort of abstract idea really helps brand this series in a way that I think fits a little bit better. So That's why I love them so much. And it's definitely going to set them apart from where it was going before. So yeah.
Of course, we're also very curious to opinions of you who is watching this episode. So if you want to share your opinions about the covers we just showed you, feel free, and please do, to leave a comment below. We are curious to know what you think.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning into the REDink Writers podcast. We're so glad that you could join us. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the little bell button so that you can stay tuned for future episodes, as well as get caught up on some past episodes that we have posted. So also be sure to check out our website, redinkwriters.com, where we will be releasing a new Twitter poll, listeners poll rather, for next week's episode, so we can get your opinions on what you want to hear about. So that'll be on our website, as well as we will post that and tweet that on Twitter. Next week's episode, not next week, excuse me. The next episode that we are going to be doing is author improvement through editing. So we're going to have a special guest on that episode. So be sure to tune in for that. We're very excited. This is going to be our first interview. So definitely be checking out our website, our YouTube, and look at our personal Twitter handles for that. So that'll be coming to you in 2 weeks. So just remember, as you're going out there into the writing community, you've got this, even if you don't know what the fuck you're doing.